PLD Projects presents Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast featuring PLD and Matty Gunner. May the Force be with you, always. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to PLD Projects. Welcome back to Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast, our weekly Star Wars show here on the network. I am your host, PLD, and with me, as always, the hairiest of sidekicks, my co-pilot in life, Matty Gunner. How you doing, my friend?
PLD, I don't know how many times I need to say this to you. Who cares how I'm doing? Who gives a shit how I'm doing? No one cares, dude. We have a special guest with us.
We're going to go right to it. No banter, no
one cares to hear about how we're doing. We got the most specialist of special guests, a man who we bring up pretty much weekly on this show, whose best-selling book is in the background right over there. Just bring the legend on screen, man. I'm tired of talking.
Tired of talking already. All right, well then, without further ado, let's bring on friend of the show, friend of our lives, probably one of the greatest Star Wars shows out there. And if you're not watching it, I don't know what you're doing here. You go there first, sub there, make sure you get that underway. Then you can come back and we'll watch us Yahoos talk. First off, of course, we love this guy very much. Or one of the best books on Star Wars you could ever have. And I believe you can still get it personalized from him. But I'll let him talk about it because he's better at talking about it than I am for sure. Mr. Ken Napzok.
He's a friend of the show. He's a friend of life. I am here. How are you, boys?
And you say you're not a musician. What is this nonsense?
I wish I could sing. I wish I could carry a tune, but I'm here. This is great, boys. First of all, I like the banter. I like banter, but I usually watch your show like on a Saturday morning. I watch like Alex and Molly's Q&A videos on Star Wars Explained. I watch your guys' show and play some Fortnite or some Madden or MLB The Show and have a bowl of cereal. This is fun to actually be on this side of the camera with you.
It's always a pleasure to have you on, and I'm actually happy to be talking live with you because I do have one little minor bone to pick with you. It's that every time you do a live call-in show, whether it's on the ForceCenter or on some, I can't do it because I'm always doing something wrong. So somehow our time. I was briefly on the blathering. That's true. I was on the blathering once. But since then, it seems like I've never had a time to try to get the call back. And I love calling into your shows. Wonderful time always talking to you. This is going to be a fun show for us. If you've never been here, guys, we head to like and subscribe. I'll do that kind of thing quickly. The like, subscribe, comment, algorithm, yada yada. You hear it all the time. You know what you're talking about. It's true. It does help the show though. But what we do is here we have a main topic, and then we have news of the week, little bits and pieces of news of the week. Of course, last week's show was dedicated to our 3-week news catch up because we didn't do news at all with all the big bad batch finale. I can talk. Bad Batch finale, Tales of the Empire. We had a lot of stuff to discuss and didn't have time for news, but we caught it all up, so we're back to normal. Thank goodness. Of course, it's also been difficult because we have a certain show host who is not trying to spoil himself on anything Acolyte. So that's been me dancing the landmines, trying to figure out what I can say, what I can't say about the Acolyte, because I don't know about you, Ken. I pretty much know everything that there is to know, at least that's out on the internet at this point.
No. Even for being a weekly show with ForceCenter, if someone sends me something that's like a leaked figure design or a detailed review, I don't dive into it. And but if TV spots, trailers, interviews, yeah.
Do people actively send you leaked stuff?
Yeah, not like the scoopy, leaky stuff, toy stuff or anything like, hey, this is coming out. And that's, I wouldn't say it's like bad or nefarious from them. It's just, I don't want to know those kind of details. Yeah.
I try to avoid the in detail stuff myself. I don't want to know everything going in, but something comes to me. If I see an article with Amanda Stembler going into her character a little bit, I'm always curious to see what you bring to the show. Stuff like that Maddie's avoiding. But it's been
I'm avoiding everything. Like, I feel bad that I can't watch Alex and Molly's Q&A videos or what their ForceCenter content that's related to it. I'm gonna go back and watch it.
Yeah, we've missed your view. Your one view has hurt us. Can I ask you? I respect it because I know a lot of people do this, and like I said, I'm not full in. I try to keep my my viewing experience somewhat pure. What about this series made you do this?
This show, and I know a lot of people say this about a lot of media, is like I feel like this show was written for me, like with me in mind of like it's a murder mystery, very dark side themed. And I know we make the joke on this show, oh, Matty's the Sith Lord. I do, like Qui-Gon went to the light because it was there. I tend to lean to the dark because it was there. And the martial arts side aspect of it, yes, I'm in. The serial like murder thriller, yep, you got me. So it just seems like from a on paper perspective, this seems like a show that I can really dive deep in. And I hate getting 10 million TV spots like show up on my feed showing all the same clips bar like one or two, but like I can wait and watch the show. Like we're all gonna be watching the show. So why not just wait for when the show drops?
I feel you.
I myself, I would the TV spots are even too much for me nowadays, and I'm someone who loves watching them all. I saw the big one, obviously the big one they had after the Phantom Menace they put in theaters. That was cool to see, and I've seen like all the real trailers, and like I might have actually missed a teaser or two at this point because we're so close at this point. And that's of course the best part about the show for us is that now next week we start the Accolade review. We don't have to worry about the news too much anymore unless anything drops like mid-season, which doesn't usually happen. But, I guess you never know. But because of that, I think normally this is the kind of show we would have a big preview of the next week's show, but we can't really do that without diving into things that Matty might not want to know. So
do I need to unplug and go read a book?
No. You're good that way.
Because I had just the book right here to read.
Great. Oh, solid.
There was actually
no acolyte in there.
No acolyte in there. But I did get the author's personalization.
Look at that
signature.
Sideways. I wrote at an angle. All my writing goes up.
It's much better writing than me. I gotta tell you, I've never had good handwriting. I think I have asthma, and so all the medicine I was on when I was younger made my hand jittery a little bit. Like it was always a kind of steroidy kind of stuff, and I just never really recovered. And so my signature, my wife makes fun of me all the time because like anybody could copy my signature. It's literally like.
So this would be Matty's tangent for the week, and then we can move on. Did you guys, I don't know if it was an English thing, did you guys have like handwriting classes in school? Because we did.
Yep.
We had to like write over and over and over again until like it was damn near perfect. And I think that's a lost thing that like they should bring back. Instead of trying to bring back national service, they should bring back handwriting.
Yeah, I mean, we all had the cursive. We had to learn the cursive, and you had the sheets of paper with the lines. You got to get the line to the middle.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Lowercase is below the lines.
Lowercase below. Yeah, absolutely.
I did not do very well in those classes. I'm not going to lie, but it's a little bit of a traumatizing experience for me. Thank you for bringing it up, Matty. As always.
I always used to struggle with the P's because like the vertical line of the P, I didn't want it to like drop too far down. Onto the next line for the letter to like go over it. But anyway, that's my tangent for the week because we got a special guest on. So who gives a shit to hear me talk?
All right, let's do our news bits of the week. I want to first off, my first news bit I want to talk about is a really brief one. I am going to say RIP to this news beat because we're not going to talk about it again. As always, I take all my news bits from Star Wars Newsnet. I like that site a lot. For collating the news bits, they tend to have a good view on what's true, what's false, what's speculation, what's fact. So they had yet another article from Daisy Ridley being interviewed about her current film. And of course, Star Wars always comes up. And yet once again, she was asked about Star Wars. And she had the same answer she's had for the past about 18 times. We've reported this in the show. I have not read the script yet, but it's imminent.
Cool.
So you have heard it here first. This is the last time I am saying those words online, no matter what interview comes out. The next time I'm going to talk about Daisy Ridley and a new Jedi Order script is when the imminent moment that's been imminent for about 6 months now, it feels, that moment passes.
Ken, you're witness to this. Hold him to it, please.
I agree. It's fun to cover the Star Wars news, but after a while, we at ForceCenter change our policy a little bit too. We're going to do 2-hour speculation on the new batch of Black Series figures. Or are you excited for these Grogu socks? We're not doing that anymore. Not anymore.
That's right.
My stuff
You
too.
know what, Matty? I will give Matty the credit. He's been kind of leaning on me a little bit, and I would throw up everything. Oh yeah, and so said they're interested in joining Star Wars. Yeah, everybody's interested in joining Star Wars. We all know that.
Yep.
You get asked the question, what are they going to say? No, I don't want the money.
Right.
All right.
So I'm with you. I'm with you.
That is Matty. Anything you want to say? You want to?
No, next.
All right,
Love it.
fair enough.
Love it.
Now, next bit of news I wanted to touch base on is the Acolyte did have its premiere, and this is for all you know, I'm not going to do anything, Matty. You can listen; it's fine. We had a bunch of people, including friends of ours, Matt Damon. Why did I say Matt Damon? Wow.
Oh wow.
You did that when we talked about
Wow.
House of the Dragon too. When we were doing on our old show, we did House of the Dragon versus Ring of Power, and you mistook Matt Smith for Matt Damon.
I just love Matt Damon.
He loves Matt Damon.
At least my defense here is I was looking at your name on the bottom, so I saw Matty and went into Damon. So. Or maybe it's a Molly thing. Molly and Alex.
Yeah, might be.
Maybe that's what I'm doing. Alex Damon and Molly Damon and Kyle Katarn, who I recently got to have a show with on Nerd Chronics channel, the Passion Fruit channel, which is pretty cool. Got to see it. Of course, that's where all the spoilers usually come out. So, Matty, I'm very impressed that you've been able to keep it since there. Now, of course, every reaction I've seen, every quote I've seen on Twitter is overglowing with praise. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Really treats it wonderfully, and things of that nature. Now, my question to you guys is one I always have: how far do we trust these reactions, given that we know that who's going to go to the premiere is generally people who are not overly invested, but heavily invested and really genuinely like Star Wars? Not saying they're lying, not saying they're anything else, but you got to kind of tie in the whole experience of getting to go to Lucasfilm, getting to go to the premiere with everybody, and that kind of thing. How far do we take these reactions, and are we pleased with them?
Yeah, I am pleased with them because you have to look at there's certain. I'm not even going to say individuals and make it think like I'm calling people out, but there's the press side of it, and there's people I know and have worked with on the press side, the more traditional, and that includes digital media, but traditional movie press side or TV press side, who are saying great things, and I'll look at those ones. It's not to discount the other ones. This gets into a larger discussion. Me surviving the great shill wars of 2017. There's no such thing as Disney shills. There's no checks coming in. However, the game has changed a bit, and you have to acknowledge that. Those events that you're seeing, the red carpet premieres, which have the cast and everything, we think of those premieres as 1952, Marilyn Monroe, red carpet, the glitz and glamours of Hollywood. They are just influence events now and influencer events, and they are inviting folks that have built up a following that are going to go, they're not there for in-depth coverage. Some people are, but some people swing a lightsaber on Instagram and they have 1 million followers. They're invited. So it's changed the game a little bit. So even if someone's excited, you shouldn't discount it. But they're also not looking for things like other folks are on the press side. So there's some names, I won't name them here, that I was like, oh, that person, I sat next to them at Solo. We disagree on Solo. A great Star Wars film. They don't think it is, but they like the Acolyte. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of weight into that, if that makes sense.
That makes absolutely all sense. Matty, what about you?
I feel so bad because I'm sitting in between one of the great broadcasters of our time and you, PLD. I thought
it was the other way around.
No. Come on. You know the level of respect I have for you. I really do not like taking other people's, unless it's someone I follow, like Ken, you, Joseph and Jennifer, or Alex and Molly, or Alden Diaz, or if it's someone that I follow, that's because I value and trust and respect their opinion. I don't go looking for the opinions of people who I'm not interested in what they have to say. And yeah, that could be considered as having the blinders up, and I'm not interested in dissenting opinions. That's not the truth. That's not the case at all. We have me and PLD have different opinions about a lot of things, but I still take his word for it when he says he enjoys something about Star Wars. But I find it hard when people put a lot of stock into what creators and the influencers and personalities, because I've been around those people, and a lot of them do just say things to, protect relationships and things like that. So I tend to like not pay as much attention to it. If that makes sense. Like I mentioned before, the show's going to come out. We're going to watch it. I'll just wait till then and form my opinion then.
Oh, absolutely. I'm never looking forward to forming my. I don't ever look to these ever form my opinion. I always watch it afterwards and form my own. I will say I used to be more cynical about these things than I was because I didn't know anybody. Now that I know some of the people involved, I know that some of them are very genuine and very truthful, and they're not going to be some. They wouldn't. They'll if they're going to have. They'll hide like. They'll be positive about the experience, but you can kind of tell when someone's overly excited about something, and when they're being truthful and genuine.
It bears, it bears a bigger discussion. I don't think anyone needs to make a 4-hour video about anything, especially when you're a bully off air and have hurt people. It's a grain of salt you should take from anything they say. But like I said, it's changed, and I went through this. So there was a time where people thought, oh, they got to go to the Last Jedi premiere. Of course, they're going to be wowed by it. MFers, I'm in this business. Like, I'm friends with Luke Skywalker's son. I'm not going to be wowed by a premiere. You know what I mean? We're going there to cover it as press. A lot of times it's boring workday stuff. You know how many screeners I turned down at Collider? It's one of the reasons I got fired. I didn't want to go to this stuff. So that has changed. So there was people I sat with in line who had the red carpet, had all experience, and then they'd go online and they'd rip it apart. They were at the next one because they had to be. That was the job. Right. And what happened is on the outside, especially when everyone started their podcast, you guys included, as you should. We all have the gear. My lights are a little bright today, but you all have the gear. You could all do this. And then it felt like, well, why are they getting it when I'm doing this? And it became this weird fight that was unlike anything else in the past. These premieres have always been press events. They've always been to create a feeling of fun and glitz and glamour. That includes going to theme parks. That includes going to this. So it bears a bigger conversation. Is that even a correct phrase? I don't know. I'm not a smart one. That's why I don't know about it. ForceCenter hasn't been invited to these ever. We've never been to these. We've been to like the solo press screenings. I've been a +1. Like, we've never had access. And you would argue that some people would say ForceCenter's too positive, right? And too blinders on. We've never had access. It's not about that. It's about who can help create an event. And if you got 1 million followers because you swing a lightsaber in your cosplay gear, God bless you, because you're going to help them create the atmosphere. It's gone to what they call fanfluencers now. But to your point, Paul, you can tell. And that's why I'm saying, forget that stuff. Forget the Tuesday fanfluencer stuff. It's the roll call press event on Wednesday. It's the junket where you're sitting down with actual people who work in the industry, journalists, music, movie coverage folks, and TV coverage folks. And those people are the people you can look at for an actual review and for an actual thing to engage with. But I don't want to discount the other people, because I've been in it, where just because you didn't like Solo, but I did, and you can go, well, you were at the premiere. You did get to wait in line with Lawrence Kasdan for Tri-Tip. Of course you gave it a positive review. Sorry, that's an attack on my integrity. And also, I have hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of podcast audio backing up why I love Solo.
And a best-selling book.
And a best-selling book versus a tweet.
Right.
And that's kind of what's going on right now. And we saw this whole thing with the Galaxy's Edge thing. Whether or not a couple good points were made, very mean person made that, and with a lack of understanding of a lot of what into that. So it's a hot button issue right now. But
absolutely, I appreciate that, actually, because that shows things from a different light as well. Someone who's been in there, been inside that thing, even if it's briefly or against your will, sometimes probably. But I agree, and I fully agree with you. I think you got to just kind of parse out what is and what isn't. Be excited about it. Let it hype you up a little bit. Just as always, at the end of the day, you got to form your own opinion anyway. If you're not forming your own opinion, then what are you even doing here? Why are you bothering? Watch the thing, see how it affects you, see how you relate to it, and hopefully it works for you. And we're going to find out soon, all of us. So hopefully it'll tickle Matty's fancy, and he'll be excited that he did stay spoiler free as far as he did. So
I think he will.
I think he will too. And all right, that's all. Like I said, no shade was ever meant to anybody who went to these premieres and shouted out.
I called out enough people last week. I'm not.
That's the other side. We don't need to talk about. We can dive into those. Okay, maybe one day when we get so pissed off and fed up, we'll have a full-on rant session about everybody. We'll call the names out. That might get us clicks, because that's what people love is the hate. So All right, let's move on to our next topic of discussion. Let's skip forward here to you're going to say her name for me again, Matty. Say her name for me.
I believe it's Adria Arjona.
Thank you.
Adria Arjona.
Adria Arjona. I am awful at saying names. I'll say it, so I try not to, so I don't offend anybody. But she is a lovely actress from Andor who plays Bix. She has been making the rounds with a couple of conversations about Andor, which I'm excited about. I think Andor has been a very unique spin on Star Wars and not something we need all the time, like some people seem to think. But it is nice to have that as an alternative. But she is hyping me up a little bit about a couple of things. Specifically, she says, one quote I want to say is more about her than about the show. A very astute observation by her in her career. I think it's going to help her out. I want to see what you gentlemen think about it. They're talking about Bix and possibly doing a spinoff on Bix later on. This was a conversation that's been had. It's been very low level. I haven't heard it from many people, but it's been kind of making the rounds. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Who knows? Sometimes it's just smoke. But she was asked about doing a spinoff, and she said she's not yet ready for a big spinoff, and she's still trying to make a name for herself in Hollywood. Perhaps tying herself up to one particular role or one franchise could be detrimental to that. Her quote was, "I feel like a big spinoff could be later in my career. I'm trying to give job security to myself in the future. I'm trying to elongate it. Now, I got a tattoo for Bix. My makeup artist from the show did it in my trailer. I love the show." So with that in mind, I think that's a really astute thing to do. Some people would jump at that job security as in, we're going to do a big spinoff. Absolutely, sign me on board. Throw me the money. Get me in there. But there is that other side of things where you could be pigeonholed into being Bix for the rest of your life. I think that's a very smart thing for a young actress. Ken, what do you think about that, Ken?
It's smart. Also, when the offer comes and the dollar signs show up, and that's not cynical. I'm not saying that's cynical. It's very hard to get security in this business.
Right.
She's an international star performer. She is still not as known here in the States, and that's still kind of a barometer for where you can obtain a certain kind of success. So I think she's smart to keep it open, but I understand. Look what happened with Daisy Ridley. At the end of 9, it was sometimes misused, but it's this idea of like, hey, I've done Rey. I have played that part, and I'm going to look for other things. That's what she should say at that time. She's played some wonderful things. The what's this Woman in the Sea film's getting some rave reviews. Yeah. Speaking of reviews, and I saw a real nice post about that today about how this reviewer was blown away about how engaged they were with the story. So Daisy's doing the project she wants. She's afforded herself that luxury by getting plugged into this franchise, and now she can go revisit Rey in a different way, which I'm fascinated to see when she reads that script. So I think Adria's saying some good things here. It's too early in the game, right? We'll see how the second season goes. And there's a cynical approach to, every Star Wars character gets a spinoff, but her character's a wonderful character that was an early, actor in the rebellion on Luthen's side. And what does that mean? And where does she go if she survives this series? Those are wonderful questions we might have. Yeah. And so always keep
jump onto that. Yeah, I would jump onto that because that character is one who, like, there's a single side. Everybody gets a spin off, absolutely. But she is very intriguing as that lower level kind of operative at the time. She's not connected to any other characters. Luthen's like the one real, obviously Andor, but that's not going to be a thing at this point, I would think. I think it'd be away from Andor. I do like the idea of it. I've always been about, Matty and I talk about it all the time. Some people want to get away from Skywalker Saga, want to get away from everything, and I understand that, but I love the connectivity. I love the connectivity. So give me Yoda and the High Republic. Sure. It's a connective tissue, makes it feel real to me. I love this. I don't buy into this.
Still real to me, damn it.
It's still real to me, damn it. Exactly. I don't think it makes it smaller. I think it actually helps expand it outwards. I know I'm in the minority about that, and that's fine. I'll sit here with my feelings on that. Maddie, how about you? What do you feel about it? Is this a smart thing for?
I think it's great for her. Who doesn't want job security? I'm in the music industry. There's fuck all job security. So
yeah, I don't have any.
Good for her, But I call bullshit as well on the every Star Wars character gets a spin-off because I'm still waiting on the Tika the Jawa show to get announced. And I know the great and talented Brian Ward has been waiting forever for a Dex show to be announced. So Anyone who says that.
Yeah, it became a punchline early on about what is the gonk droid going to get a story, and it's like that's not what happened. Obviously, it was fun to even make those jokes. I like a good Dex joke, so I'm there for it. But yeah,
I want the Tika and Teak show. That's what you get to do.
Tika and Teak.
I think I actually pitched this on an episode of ForceCenter in a question one time that I wanted a show called Antica Roadshow, which is just Tika the Jawa going around to different planets.
That works.
That's right.
Showing off different antiques in the sandcrawler.
I love all that.
Do love that. That's another show I think we'll have to do. We'll do an actual full-on show about. We'll just do our pitches for all the spin-offs we can possibly imagine and more. Get it all out of our system. Now, another comment Adria made, which I actually found impressively interesting to me. I didn't really think about this. She mentioned how obviously we know that in between all the episodes at Andor, they're doing the blocks of 3, and then a year in between the blocks of 3 next year. They're doing the 5 years in the space of a 12-episode season. And she compared the idea of a character aging like that versus what's more usual and typical in a movie that we see or TV show. Usually we see an upswing, like a character ages 10 years or 20 years. And it's actually probably it's probably easier to do that acting wise than trying to portray these subtle differences of a year. Because we always change within a year, but it's usually a lot more subtle. And specifically, she mentioned that. She says, it's not that you're aging 10 years, so you can't even act to the point where you have prosthetics. You can't quite hide behind masks. You're aging subtly. And I'm a very different person than I was last year, but to many other people, I might not be. So it was really tricky and interesting to get to those places and find where Bix sort of shifts a little bit. Never thought about that, and that's kind of fascinates me. Matty, I'll start with you this time. Do you have a comment on that? Are you like me?
I kind of equate it to when one of my favorite bands, Glassjaw, came back. They said that why would we write a record that sounds like us a year after we broke up? Why wouldn't we just come back and write the record that we would have made if we'd have kept going for another 10 years? So I think it's kind of similar in that you have to find that spot of where is the character going to be in that time and put yourself in that moment, concentrate on the here and now where it belongs, right? So yeah, good for her. She got a good understanding of her character. Cool.
Ken, what about you?
I love this. First of all, we know the greatest aging up in one film was Billy the Kid from Young Guns 2.
Absolutely.
You ask if I got scars? I've got scars. Yeah, that's the greatest aged up performance in film history. It's fascinating. I love an actor talking their craft of you're right. I mean, just in the last month, I've experienced things that have not just aged me in a comical sense, but, changed my perspective or changed where I am in life, changed what I got to do, both vocationally and personally. So, yeah, those are those subtle changes that you get to play. I think that's quite a fun challenge. I think she's right, that it isn't just simply as not that and I don't want to make sure it's not easy, like House of the Dragon aging up Rhaenyra with 2 performers who both did wonderful with the role. But, that's a different approach than, all right, a year has passed, your uncle's died, you've been imprisoned, blah, 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 name it. Yeah, that's fascinating. It makes me excited for what they're going to pull off with this here second season.
I appreciate that as well. I think it's going to be an interesting thing. I'll always love hearing actors talk about their craft as well. I was a young actor way back in the day when I was really young. Nowhere near anything else. So I've always interested to go, I look at it at a different angle of sorts. That's fascinating to me. So, all right, last bit of news we'll talk about before we delve into our topic today. Our topic today, which I don't think I'm a bad broadcaster. I never mentioned our big topic because we're avoiding the acolyte. We went to the next best thing. And we're going to talk about the prequel trilogy and a lot of different things about the prequel trilogy. We're going to go looking back at the prequels. That's what we called it. We're going to dive in deep on some of those films and talk about our love and our themes and our relationship with them and our engagement with them. It should be a fun time. But before we get there, let's talk about the man, the myth, the legend behind the whole thing. George Lucas made some news this week, obviously, as an honorary recipient of the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Festival, and he made a few comments. Now, I could sit here and read them all out because he talked a lot and had a lot to say, but I don't want to do that because we would be here the rest of the show if I read everything out, I think. So I'll probably try to sum up some of the the points of conversation that I think were worth discussing. If you guys, I know you guys have read them as well. If you want to bring up more that you think should be discussed, feel free. The first one, it always seems like there's a lot of gotcha in these questions. They're looking for that soundbite. They're looking for that. George Lucas said this. How do you feel, folks? And of course, there's never any gray situation. It's black or white. You have the people who are going to jump on one side of things. Some people jump on the other, and it kind of misses, I think, the subtlety and the conversation that could be had, and probably be much more of a helpful conversation if we kind of aim at the middle. Sure, there's some things that are right about it. Sure, I think we'd be overreacting if we go too far in one direction. But, that's really how we are in society today, to my chagrin, at least. I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I believe it's so most people's chagrin at our space. The first one, of course, was about diversity in the original trilogy. And Lucas was very much straightforward, saying, well, they were saying it was all white men, and most of the people are aliens. He started mentioning, of course, Lando. We mentioned Sam Jackson as Mace Windu. And I feel like that felt to me, and I'll start it off, it felt to me like another kind of that gotcha moment. There's nothing wrong with diversity. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think we are heading the right direction for this. I think we're getting more diversity included. I think that's a positive experience. I think it's a hard thing to do, to put that gaze on a film in 1977. And I think there are things that we can always look back on history and learn from. But I feel like it tends to get to be more this, well, that was bad. No, that wasn't bad. Lucas did some things here and there to do things. Was it a perfect representation? No, it wasn't. It was of its time, and we are moving forward with it. Ken, I'll start with you. What was your reaction? What do you think about that?
We did about 2 hours of this on ForceCenter, just his comments. The first thing I'll say is, number one, I love when George just stirs up trouble, because he often does, and sometimes it depends on his mood. George has also never said things perfectly and has never been perfect. I think that's part of what this interview is. Also, this interview, and shout out to Joseph Scrimshaw, who, like, in prepping our ForceCenter episode, went through, like really made sure to make the context. This wasn't a question, answer. This was like George with a microphone at 80, kind of rambling. At times he got lost. The crowd at one point had to shout out Lando's name. Not that George couldn't remember, but just he's going to, like, who did Billy D. Williams play? Like, he's 80s. I think he's been through some stuff in the last couple of years medically too, and health wise. He's starting to lose weight and everything. But I think we can't lose sight of that and what George is doing. He blathers just like I do every Thursday night live on my YouTube channel. I took a lot of his points. I understand of it. I still think he said it kind of clumsy again, because it's not a prepared statement. Without a doubt, New Hope was made in a certain era where you looked at the screen and you didn't see what was missing as much, and I think now you do. But I think George is also speaking from someone who he's talking about the different eras, because this is also kind of tied to, I think, I don't know the full context of this part of the interview, but he's talking a little bit about the droid, C-3PO and R2, Jar Jar, Ewoks. All along the way, I've been told, why is this silly stuff in here? Why are these characters? And he just kind of gets all this stuff. He's reliving some of the criticism. George is someone who is, again, never been perfect. Some of the depictions in the prequels were viewed as problematic. My mom is calling right now on the show here, so I don't know why that ringer is loud. Hi, Mom. But George is someone who has walked the walk as a very empathetic person, who has built affordable housing on rich land because his rich neighbors wouldn't allow it. He has made red tails. He does that, and I think there's a little frustration in George's comments here of just kind of like, hey, I've taken a lot of slings of arrows. The diversity thing is important. Let's acknowledge, again, we're three white guys talking about this. It's interesting. I have insider information, about Leslie Headland kind of on the press days saying, I don't want to answer the diversity question anymore. This shouldn't be this is just the cast. It's not a diverse cast. It's the cast. That's what, eventually this just becomes wallpaper, where it's there. You don't see it. You don't recognize that it is a quote unquote diverse cast. So I think that's where we are, where we want to get, but we still have to acknowledge the movements forward. And I think, that's a lot of what George is there. It's a tough thing to answer to, because I don't think he answered it perfectly. His answer didn't sound great. Yeah.
And that's
him going, they said Star Wars is all white people. There was other people there. They're aliens. George.
Yeah, a little bit of that. I definitely had a few of that. My best friend's a black guy kind of thing.
Yeah,
When it
yeah,
comes to
there was a little of that. Again, he's never. We know some of his comments about to Charlie Rose years ago that got him in trouble. So
Absolutely. And I think that's the case. As long as we understand that, I think that's a great way to look at it. Yeah, he's not saying it perfectly, but I don't think we're going to call him out as the evil empire for it either, as well. And that's what some people tend to do. And I think it's a little bit, as always, the truth. So it lies somewhere in the middle. And there in the middle here, Matty Gunner, where's your truth with this statement?
You guys said it more eloquently than I ever could. Paul, thank you for bringing up.
I don't know if I said anything eloquently. I just you want to try to answer as best you can with George kind of stumbling through some things too.
Yeah, we are looking at an 80-plus-year-old man here. There's no bones about it. Like, he's the crazy wacky uncle at the barbecue that might say something a bit, but he's your uncle. Like, you've known him your entire life. You've loved everything he's done your entire life. You know that he has good. George, especially Ken, I'm so glad you brought up the affordable housing. Like, he has done so much to give back to the people that have supported him. And his creations and his art over the years. And I think just trying to sling arrows at the man and just throw stones from inside a glass house, it gets you nowhere. And I get it's not necessarily a gotcha kind of line of questioning, but at the same time, you got to remember who you're asking the questions to. Yes, it is George Lucas. Yes, the man is an icon of cinema, but he is also an 80-year-old man who has been sat at this film festival for hours and hours, probably just wants to grab a sandwich and go back home. Like, he probably doesn't want to be there.
I mean, he received the Pab d'Or award. It was great to see him there with Francis. Yeah, but I feel he's just,
they could have mailed it to him.
Yeah.
They could have mailed it to him.
I mean, it's pretty big. But yeah.
I was actually very happy to see them up there together, him and Francis, as the Mavericks they were during the early days. A couple more little quotes I thought that were interesting. And again, it's because George Lucas at this point, as much as he's driven things forward technologically speaking, I feel like he's kind of insulated himself a little bit more. I don't think he's on Twitter every day. I don't think he's doing anything like that. And he starts talking about, AI being the latest thing. And he kind of answered it in a very George Lucasian way, in a very like the rambling, didn't have anything prepared. I was asked about it or talking about it, and he stated, we've been using it for 25 years. It's not AI, but we've all used the digital technology because we helped pioneer a lot of that, especially at ILM, because for a while, they're the only place that was doing digital. The thing of it is, it's inevitable. It's like saying, I don't think those cars are going to work. Let's just stick with the horses. And you can say that, but that isn't the way the world works. I found that fascinating as well when you think about it, because it seems like a lot of times we got filmmakers all towing one line and other people towing another. He's kind of saying a little bit of things in the middle. There are things that have gone forward that have been like, well, we have to see what's going to work, what's not going to work. You can't just automatically delete something because it's already been created. So how do we use it to our benefit? Now, some people will say, well, he's talking about doing AI, and I don't know if that's exactly what he's saying. It doesn't sound like that's what he's saying to me. It sounds like he's saying that, it's out of the gate, it's out of the barn. We got to figure it. So something's going to happen. This is not going to just go away, no matter how much we'd wish to, delete it. It's about how we can take a hold of it, focus it, and use it in the way that it should be used. Ken, what were your thoughts on that? Were you surprised at all the way he was talking about it?
No. Also, and again, I'm not just advertising ForceCenter, but we went into this one for a while. I think we need to define what this conversation is actually about. Not us three here, but society. Right. AI is now an umbrella term. It's now also you got like a toothpaste company's like, oh, we got AI. It's popular, right? Research shows AI is a popular search term. We got AI toothpaste. It's just become an umbrella term. What George is talking about is again, and it's not even a perfect answer. The horse to car thing, I don't know if that's a perfect example. We have questions that we need to ask about how we use this. Bob Iger just came out a week prior, said something kind of similar, and of course, Uncle Bob got attacked, and I think as he should, because you should be wary of a corporation going, we're going to figure out how to use it and cut jobs and costs. There's generative AI, which is just theft and all that kind of stuff. But I've always said I don't want anyone to catch me and call me a hypocrite. I use quote AI programs for some things. For writing, I don't take anything. I don't just write an essay based off an AI search. But if I go, okay, I don't remember Ahsoka's 10 best moments. Let me see what this thing comes up with. Just send me something else. I have send me down the path. I have AI super sharp picture correction things for thumbnails and stuff. We kind of been using that for a while, but now it's just a better version. And who knows? Maybe I find out that it does take from something else and I stop using it. I think George is just saying, look, they yelled at me when I went to digital. They yelled at me when I went to digital editing. They yelled at me when I decided to make a character out of, a completely computer-generated character. They yelled at me every point along the way. Star Wars is about change and adaptation. Maddie and I have had a discussion on music. I don't want AI-created songs, but if an AI program can clean up a Beatles track that was lost forever, I'm going to take it in and see what it can do. Peter Jackson has used AI successfully with his Let It Be and all that kind of stuff, the Beatles film. But we just kind of have to define the conversation, and then we know it when we know it. I think we all know it. When you see someone out there, a tech programmer, as Scott Bromley from Star Wars Show, producer of Star Wars Show, just used in a Twitter thread the other day, you see them trying to get a leg up on art, trying to take art away, trying to take humanity away. George is not talking about that. George has never talked about that. He wants to use tech to bring out the humanity. Big thing for, and I'll wrap up my rant here, big thing for George, too, is democratizing the tech so that other people can tell his stories. When he was making his first student films, when I moved to LA in 98, my friend was making a short film. We had to go down to the Kodak headquarters in Hollywood, which I think is gone now. You had to make an appointment. You had to go buy reels of film. It cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Now you can shoot on your phone. That's big for George because he knows more people will get to tell their stories, especially voices that don't get heard. That's always been big to George. Early interviews of digital film and stuff, like, no, more people will be able to tell their stories. This is good. So I think it's part of what's going on in his mindset of it. It's not a complete answer from him. And it's, again, something I think we have to continue to define. What are we talking about when we say AI?
It's a great point. I use it as well for when I make my own thumbnails. When I do, I mean, I have Jacob Patrick who makes most of my thumbnails. So I pay out. He does a very good job for us. But every once in a while, I'll be reactive, like, I got to do a reaction. I'm not going to add.
I got an argument with someone recently too, because a channel I know, not in our space, it's some other space, uses complete AI generated thumbnails, and I was like, that's someone's job you just took. That's our buddy Brian Ward's job that you just took. I lost a job at a company about in December 2022. That was a part-time kind of writing job. They replaced me with AI. That stuff sucks. Wait, this is holy Snokes. That shit sucks, and it speaks to corporations just trying to push the profit margin. But that's not what I think George is talking about, because guarantee he'd fight those corporations.
100%. And I appreciate the pro-swearing stance, that you're shifted onto our show. I appreciate that. I think, Matt, do you have anything further you wanted to add to that?
I don't want to kind of go on a massive anti-AI rant, because I think, especially since Ken and I had that conversation you mentioned, I have kind of started to adapt my views to AI. I mean, a man I have a great deal of respect for, Hideo Kojima, uses a lot of AI and scanning actors to put into his video games. And he's very much about using technology to push storytelling forward. And whereas then I look at like a tech company like Spotify, who allow people to flood their feeds with thousands and thousands of AI generated tracks solely to pay Taylor Swift billions and billions of dollars. Whereas bands like Mourner, who just because we don't get over 1,000 streams per song, we get fucking shafted. But because Taylor Swift has a bunch of bot farms, stream farms that are run by bots, auto-generating her songs over and over, and people flood like major. This is major record labels pumping out AI generated songs, so their artists can get the lion's share of the pie. Right. And the smaller artists can get fucked over. Then I've got a problem. But if you are using that tool for not only to push storytelling, but allowing other generations to the next generation to take that and expand upon it and then use it for their own storytelling, that I respect. Using it solely for financial gain and to fuck over the little person, then I'm like, fuck you. Get that shit out of my face.
I think I'll end this statement and this news in general by saying, I'm going to appropriate a saying of Ken. Instead of speculate responsibility, let's also AI responsibly. That's what we'll go for there. Alrighty, let's get into our topic of the day as I start choking on myself. I need to take a sip of water first. Thank you. Thank you for that break. We're going to go into the prequel trilogy. That's just something I know we are all positive about now. I'm not sure we were always positive about it. We'll dive into some of that. Let's get into that. Actually, that's the first question I have for you guys. And let's dive into that. This is 25 years ago now. I can't believe it's 25 years ago. I am feeling older every second we sit here. But here it is. We had the original trilogy. We had the Dark Times with the expansion of the EU. We had the special editions come out, and we knew that was moving towards George finally returning to the universe with the prequel trilogy. Here it is, 1999. Finally, it shows up. Where were we during this time frame? How did we feel about it going into it? How did we feel about it after the end of the first film, after Phantom Menace, moving on? Matty, I'll start with you as the baby of the group. I mean that in the nicest way.
I mean, you can go to my live stream appearance on ForceCenter, which Ken and Joseph were very kind enough to let me crash the party and bring my own little brand of chaos to the proceedings. But I was like you mentioned, I was a child. I was 8 years old when the Phantom Menace came out, and at the time, my exposure to film was stuff like Sinbad in the 7 Seas and like pulpy classic movies like that, and watching those with my granddad. And like I think the most recent movie I'd probably watched was like Terminator 2. And so it really did open up a lot for me in terms of what storytelling was, and like playing a game with the kids I went to school with. We would just reenact the Duel of the Fates. I would be Darth Maul. My two friends would be Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. We would stand on top of a brick wall with sticks and just start swinging sticks at each other. And like I would pretend to fall down. Like it just opened up so much in terms of like my imagination that I loved everything about it.
Awesome. Ken, let's go for you. What are your thoughts?
I want video of Matty being hit with sticks and knocked down. That's amazing. With an upper crust sandwich. It's been a long journey, and it's been well documented, and you can hear different versions of my opinions on the prequels. But you can't take away the excitement I had in 1999. You can't take away the confusion I had upon early viewings, but also what I connected with and loved, and it's fascinating. I almost want a doc made about the not the prequel generation, which I'd call you, Matty, but like the original trilogy generations battle with the prequels and the journey with it. And I'm not talking about the people versus George Lucas, which is one of the dumbest, most mean-spirited documentaries we know.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you've never heard of this?
No,
yeah. It was about 2012 or something like that, and one of our mutuals was in it and was like, "Look, the producers lied to us about what this was," and he's ashamed that his face shows up in it. And that was the era. That was 2011 or 12. You want to know why George sold the company among myriad reasons, but why he sold the company and Katie Lucas got off social media in 2011? It was that kind of stuff. And I was part of that. Our buddy Adam Witt says it the best. I've never heard anyone say it more perfectly. He said, our generation, you and I, Paul and Adam, the original trilogy generation, the first chance we got, we tried to destroy Star Wars. That being the prequel. The first chance we got, we tried to destroy it for other people. We took the love away from it from folks, little kids like Matty on the playground playing with sticks. And that perspective is something that I've gained over the years. I don't want to gaslight anyone and think that I still think episodes 1, 2, and 3 are 100% perfect and that everything George tried worked wonderfully, or things that don't look a little different, or the acting isn't a little wooden for me still, or the C-3PO Attack of the Clones humor is not my favorite. I don't want anyone to think that I'm like, it's the best. I just love them. I love what they say. I love what they did, and we're going to go more detailed into this, but this is just looking back at where I was to where I am now. I had that same joy going into the theater. And instead of engaging with what was presented to me or stopping to think about it, I just looked around and said, well, there's some things that didn't work for me, and we're all going to agree to hate this. Okay, great. We're going to hate this. And I had my roommate at the time was 4 years older than me, and he wasn't a huge Star Wars fan. He was a history major. He was getting his doctorate actually at the time at CSUN. Not his doctorate, his master's, and then he was going to leave in here to go start his doctorate. And he explained to me, oh my God, George is great. This is what he did. And I don't remember the details of it. Another historian will jump in. But he said, this is what this represents in this particular battle. And when the British Empire came here, and they fought the natives of the land. And I remember going, oh my God, that's amazing. That's amazing. And then for some reason I was just like, I don't want to engage with any of that. Jar Jar was stupid,
Right.
And I've always regretted not following that path earlier.
That's
Anyways, I rambled like George Lucas at the Cannes Film Festival, but
I got like that. I got what you were saying, and I appreciate that because I actually feel much the same way in terms of I was an original trilogy guy just like you, Ken, and I grew up loving it so much. My first film I ever saw in the theaters was a 4-year-old. I was seeing Empire Strikes Back in the theater, first ever film, and I was scared to death of Yoda, not Vader, not Sheev, Yoda. And I was waiting. I went to the college. I saw the special editions come out. It was a bonding moment. It's how I bonded with a lot of college friends. Oh, you like Star Wars? You're my people.
Same. Yeah.
And so when it came to this time, I was working at FYE at the time.
FYE, yeah.
Throw that back there. And I had a couple friends.
Olds.
Yeah, speaking of old, I still have one around here, I think, somewhere, but it's very smaller and much less music in there now. I had friends in there that we were big Star Wars fans, so we were all breaking into it, getting excited about it. And then we saw Phantom Menace, and I felt like there was an immediate shift of everybody just deciding, like you said, deciding to hate it. And I want to say, not to glorify myself in any way, I am no way any kind of star. I think it's actually probably a worse tactic as me is that I wanted to love it so badly because it was such a huge part of my life. I found myself going, no, but it was good still. I'd be not fighting the fight, but trying to defend it, but not defending it properly, kind of just defending it because I didn't want that feeling. At the time, there was nothing better than Star Wars. And all of a sudden, this became like a little, like chink in the armor kind of thing in a way. You're like, oh, so it's not the best anymore. No, that can't be. This is Star Wars. This is the best ever. At the same time, I had some misgivings at the time. Was there stuff I loved about it? Absolutely. Darth Maul scenes were exciting to me and everything else. I thought Liam Neeson was fun. I thought Ewan McGregor, while not being the Han Solo of the prequel trilogy that we were kind of, I don't know, promise is the right word. I remember going into that saying, oh, Ewan McGregor is going to make the Han Solo of the series. I was like, really? And he never really quite got that way for me. But I did find myself going, letting other people's hate on it like affect me, and I was kind of shut down a little bit. But I always ramp it up for the next one. Like when Attack of the Clones came out, I kind of ramped back up and kind of had a similar experience. Episode 3 came out, and that was a little bit more liked. It was a little more acceptable for everybody. It feels like at the time. Now I was actually running a new,
fan site, right?
Fan site, yeah. Basically, it's one of those kind of commentary. It's like the forum. Thank you. I'm getting old. I'm getting like George myself. Lando. The forum back in the day. Now, the big one was theforce.net. I ran what is a spinoff of that. We called it Fatooine. And we were a bunch of trolls, not in the negative, completely negative term, you would say. We would have fun trolls. Like, for example, when I think it was the Attack of the Clones trailer came out. Yeah, I think it was the Attack of the Clones trailer. There was a shot of Yoda blocking Dooku's lightning. And the reflection of the lightning was Yoda was kind of looking blue. And so we would create threads like, oh my God, Yoda's turning blue in Attack of the Clones. What's this going to mean? And it was not meant to be serious at all. But then there would be some people who were very holier than that. Like, oh, that's a stupid theory. We're like, yeah, we know. We're just fun. So we had fun doing that kind of stuff, I will say. But it's impressive where I was then versus, we'll talk about this at the end of the episode when we talk about the legacy of the prequel trilogy. I'm glad that I developed a sense of taking my time with it, and like Ken, you always say, engaging with what they are presenting us. This was not the original trilogy again. This was not George Lucas doing the whole rinse and repeat. This was a new take, a new look at things that were important to him and important to us. It should be important to us. The rise of fascism and the corruption, how corruption can kill. And it did eventually make its way there. And I'm glad that we didn't kill the prequel generation. I'm glad that we didn't take the joy away, even if we did try to, in a way. because we do have a large sentiment of prequelists now who are very much alive. And I do find it funny. Again, we'll talk about this more in the legacy. I do find it funny now how, in retrospect, the prequels definitely get a pass now compared to the quote unquote Disney era. It's interesting to see how that has shifted, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah, that's I think that's where we'll go with that. Let's move on. Some more fun topics in between. Star Wars, always been about the glub shadows and the minor characters, the ones that nobody else knows about unless you're a Star Wars fan. I know we all have those minor characters we love from the prequel trilogy. Let's name some of them and talk to me about why they've captured your imagination. Maddie, I'll start with you on this one.
I'm gonna get the obvious one out of the way, and I'm not even really sure he's a glub shitter. Really, it's Dex. Dex the Jetster. Like, there's just such a wealth that you could dive into with a character that, I mean, he's a war hero. He runs a cafe on Coruscant. You know, you never know the amount of lives that he's kind of not only been a part of, but like lives he's touched, people he's spoken to, stories that he has with people. I mean, we know because we read books and stuff, but like just someone like that is just so intriguing to me because you only get to see them for a short amount of time. But you can tell that there is something to that character that you just want. There's a reason that Brian Ward has a whole channel and a whole series of art devoted to this one character. And we can make all the jokes and the memes about the character we want, but there is a certain depth to that character that has been untouched that I think is just fascinating to me.
I love that. I always loved Dex from the get-go, and whenever I see Brian Ward, I smile. I smile heavily because of all the Dex systems.
Dex is perhaps one of my favorite characters in Star Wars, and I too had the now we're doing a 1950s diner when this guy's got 4 arms and his pants are falling down. How stupid! And it's like Attack of the Clones was an homage to 1950s sci-fi cinema, very clearly. It was not just a homage to diners. It was what it represents. What is a diner? Diner is comfort. Obi-Wan seeks out the comfort of his friend and his diner because the institution that he's a part of has become cold and mechanical. Right before this scene, he goes to get the analysis droids, and it's a deleted scene. But it's there in the plot. He goes to get an answer from the droids of the Jedi Order, and they don't have the answer. That scene at Dexter's Diner is about him seeking out the comfort of his friend, seeking out the knowledge of his friend, and it's the intersection of knowledge and wisdom. That entire scene is what I think is the access point of George Lucas's prequels. About the Jedi Order is failing from the inside because they have hid now behind their institution, they've hid behind their knowledge, and they're not letting wisdom guide them. And that's part of the problem. The Order can't see what's going on, and Obi-Wan can at this point. And it's then bookended by Liam the Shades and the kids who are more pure, who are more connected to the ethos of the Jedi Order versus the rules of the ones who are like, well, maybe the planet's not there. That's all from Dex. That's all from Dex's Diner. And that's an example of how it's easy to stop and go, what? George is doing a 50s diner now? Stupid. Versus what's there in that scene? What's going on? What's at stake? That's why I love engaging with the prequels. They're so deep. And it also has 2 great glub shittos. WA7 and Hermione Bagua, the serving staff at Dexter's Diner. It's a great scene.
It's actually funny you mentioned them. They're the ones that bothered me more than Dex when I first saw it. Because I, like you, kind of was like, what? I don't get what we're doing here. And you have this like flow droid, basically. I'm like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
This is what you're doing, Jordan.
Yeah,
I love it now.
Yeah, and like, you want a cup of Java juice? Like, yeah, it's silly, but that's what George It's Attack of the Clones. It's Attack of the 50-foot woman, and it's New War. It's a detective story. It's absolutely all that.
I mean, George always says it's for kids, and like that's the rallying cry. I don't say it's for kids and kids at heart. I can accept that.
Sorry, that came up again in this interview at Con, and for once and for all, I think let's put this all on record. We did on ForceCenter. Yeah, it's for. He said it more directly than he's ever had it before. It's for kids going through puberty, 12-year-olds who are becoming adults. Therefore, it is serious stuff. You're learning the big picture. He has at times said, to be clear, whatever, they hated Jar Jar. It's for kids. Grow up, that kind of thing. But what he meant was you're always changing. You're always facing the world in front of you, and you always have to learn from it. That's what these are. These are myths, and I made them for the 12-year-olds of every generation. And as I always say, we're always growing. We're perpetually 12. You're perpetually changing each new decade of your life. each new decision of your life. One day, Matty's going to be out here having, in and out in Sonic and missing upper crust. That's a new section of his life, and he's going to be a 12-year-old all over again.
You think I'm gonna miss upper crust for In and Out?
No, In-N-Out is so bad. In-N-Out is the most underwhelming hamburger in California. But you know what I mean. And you mentioned it, and we didn't have time to get to the news thing, but it's not Star Wars being for kids is not just Jar Jar stepping in poodoo. It is them going, you have choices in front of you. What are you going to do?
It's the importance. There's a little silliness sprinkled in to be like the frosting on the cake, so to speak, and that makes the sugar makes the medicine go down, so to speak, in a way. And I'm all for it nowadays, and I just don't judge it like I used to, and I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing.
It's all relative, man. Han Solo tapping 3PO 3 times on the shoulder is not my favorite Star Wars bit now, but as a kid, I was like, this is peak cinema.
Funny. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. I'll throw out another one in there. Sometimes he gets a little drawback for possibly his voice being maybe a racist stereotype, etc. But I always found that Watto was a very intriguing character to me. A little more than Love Shadow, of course, but as a minor character, obviously see him at this interesting. It's just a very interesting character to me in that he could have been an evil scumbag, owner of slaves of Anakin and everything else. But what always got me is that there was always that little tinge of someone underneath that he cared about Anakin. He cared enough about him to kind of make sure he was taken care of. And that little scumbag with a heart of gold character has always gotten to me a little bit. You always want to see a little bit more from him. I loved how he was the first person that, and we're getting, this is actually, I'm going to spoil one of my moments of surprise when Qui-Gon tries to use the Jedi mind trick on him. Yeah. He's like, how about the Darien? Mind tricks don't work on me. Only money.
Yeah. That got a big laugh in the screening I was at a couple weeks ago at Capitan.
That's the kind of thing that I love about the character. He's out there. He's far more engaging than some other characters in less time. And I always want to see more about him. What happened between 1 and 2? What made him become such a deadbeat? I know we can extrapolate, but there's a spinoff I wouldn't mind seeing. Maybe a 3-episode arc, Tales of the Tatooinis or something. I don't know. Maybe something to that effect. But I love me some Watto. For sure.
I love Watto too, and I fully acknowledged. We didn't. Well, I want to say we didn't see things like that at the time, but even almost immediately there was criticism on how Watto was portrayed. What I mean to say is, there was. You almost looked at we're going to do this kind of character, and you just kind of didn't see if you had a certain point of view.
Right.
Look at my screen. You know what I look like. Where you just in 1999, you were like, oh, but he's doing this, and you didn't realize that this was probably has a history that we should have analyzed a little closer growing up, and that all you could do is grow and change, acknowledge it. But what remains is I think it's also a delicate conversation because basically what you're saying is he was such a nice slave owner.
Right.
He let Anakin go home early.
Yeah, let him go home. Yippee! Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. I exactly feel the way too. It's like this is why he's a scumbag still, but at the end of the day, there's a little more to him than that. So good on. Anyone else want to throw out any other one before we?
I have one that's kind of a curveball.
Okay.
I remember the first time they're in the Senate chamber, and I'd never seen what the Houses of Parliament or Congress looked like at the time. So this was kind of my first real big look at what a big, gigantic political structure looks like. But the moment where Palpatine leans into Padme in the Phantom Menace and says, "Enter the bureaucrats," and we see Mas Amedda just kind of take Valorum to one side and start whispering in his ear, I had no idea that I would then grow to see the parallels between the movie and modern day or what's been going on for years of corporations having a place in government and having influence over government, companies like Apple, Amazon. These are companies that we use and that we rely on a day-to-day basis, but probably shouldn't have a place in government and over the laws that govern our land. But I just remember seeing that guy, and when I first saw him, I was like, that guy's really creepy, and this Mas Amedda I'm referring to, and then it informing my opinion of how weak politicians can be, that they allow someone just whispering in their ear as opposed to the thousands of millions of people screaming out for help, and they choose to listen to that little voice in their ear as opposed to the cries for help from thousands of millions of people. That stuck with me.
It's a you were getting hit with sticks on the playground and you were like, whoa, enter the bureaucrats. No, but what you're speaking to, Maddie, is one of my favorite things about the Phantom Menace, but also the entire series and what George was playing at it. The politics in Star Wars, obviously nothing new, but the politics of politics, nothing new to Star Wars, where he wanted to get to this stuff. It's a fascinating thing. I've told the story before, but to put it down on record for your audience, for those who don't know me, like Joseph Scrimshaw and I, our friendship began in 2014, and he appeared as a guest on Jedi Alliance with me and Maude Garrett, and his topic was defending the prequels, which at the time was like, what? And I was kind of like, well, I do love the pod race, but I don't know, other thing. I was still working through some things, and one of the big things he said that changed my mind immediately and made me go, oh, I need to engage with this more, was him going, I get the politics might bore some people, especially in Phantom Menace. It wasn't what we expected. But don't you think, and a lot of people would, I'm putting some words in his mouth, but a lot of people write it off as boring, mundane. Why do we need this? It's not full of action. Don't you think it would be weird if Amazon had an army and they surrounded Delaware and their senators, because Amazon senators were in the government holding this up? That would be a problem, wouldn't it? Oh, God, it would. He's like, that's what's at stake. That's what's going on. And then you have Palpatine on the other side, because it's a moment where Palpatine's not wrong. But Palpatine is able to manipulate that for his advantage. It's a little bit of what's going on with Dooku. He has righteous anger that turns to self-righteous actions. And so it's a statement on that too. It's just fascinating stuff that's all at play. But I understand if you're 7, or in my case, 23, and you're like, where's the pew, pew, pew? I do like that. I do like Palpatine because I know what happens to him. Can we get to that part? But I always say George's point wasn't Anakin doesn't fall to the dark side and kick everyone's ass. He's pathetic. He falls because he has fear of loss and connections. And Palpatine doesn't rise because he's a lightning shooting monster and Sith witch. He rises because he was able to abuse the system. It's fascinating stuff that has gotten only more important as we all look around the world.
Yeah, George is ahead of his time, as he often was in the day. And I agree. Yeah, I remember watching going, wow, this is we're sitting around. Oh, it's another scene of people sitting around talking. Oh, it's another scene of people sitting around talking. Yeah. Where's the action? But also a big case of that is that we were, especially Phantom Menace, we were before the war. There wasn't a lot of action at that point. That's like something people didn't even understand, that we have to get to the action and lay it out for you. I think that's another part of that. But I agree. About that's a great part. All right, let's move forward a little bit. I'm going to jump ahead to one of them because I feel like it's a better order. Moments of surprise. I kind of feel like that can lead into some good topic of conversation. As maybe, Maddie, you weren't as 8-year-old expecting much. So this is a little less for you, but I do want to get to you as well. But Ken and I, obviously, we growing up as original trilogy people, I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong, we all had our ideas of what was going to happen, or our predictions of what was going to happen. And that might be part of the reason why we disengaged with Phantom Menace, because it was so different than we thought. What were your favorite moments of like surprise in the trilogy that really kind of like snuck under the radar for you, didn't predict at all? And I'm not talking about Qui-Gon's Noble End, because that wasn't a surprise thanks to, of course, the soundtrack being released. And FYE, we were pouring over that and going, Qui-Gon's Noble End. Awesome. Okay.
Stupid idea.
I mean, I'm trying to think. Yeah, it comes down to, you're right about what you thought was going to happen versus, for me, one thing is that Qui-Gon is a great answer. One of the most misunderstood things of Phantom Menace, and those folks in Wisconsin who make videos with pizza rolls in it completely missed this point in their video. That can be brought down in about 5 minutes because it lacks any true insight. And that is that Qui-Gon's the main character of the Phantom Menace. It's his story. And so a lot of the main character, Anakin, doesn't even come into 40 minutes. He's not the main character. Anakin's not the main character of Phantom Menace. It's Qui-Gon's story. So that was kind of a surprise to me. I'll say, and I think it's understandable. I think it is something that, I'd love to get George's answers a little bit more. Maybe the next rambling interview he does of Padme's end was, I don't mind the result, and I think it's what might need to happen. But I would say in 2005, there was a bit of surprise that I was sitting there going, but wait a minute, Leia, Leia said she remembered her mom, and I think that changed along the way. I've heard some of the behind the scenes reasons why, but they don't bear repeating publicly, but because they don't really have to do with the character. But that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff were some of the surprises. The clones themselves. We had heard about the Clone Wars.
Right.
General Kenobi, you served my father in the Clone Wars. So I had a lot of expectations of what that was, and that was a little bit different too.
Absolutely, I would say that. A couple of moments for me. You talk about the clones specifically, the idea of the clones being on the good side at first, and then how they end up being on the quote unquote bad side. Definitely not something in my realm of expectations. A smaller one I want to mention that most people hate the idea, and I still have never hated it. But then again, I like a lot of cheesier things, so maybe that's on me. Finding out that Anakin was the one who made C-3PO or created C-3PO. People hated that at the time. A lot of people still hate that now. I always found that to be fun. I love the idea. Like it twisted some things for me. Again, I'm always also the one who already pointedly said I'm the one who likes connectivity, and I don't think it makes it smaller. I think it builds it out.
On the 3PO thing, I think our buddy Alex unearthed something I had never heard before. I knew that, number one, Anakin didn't build him. He repaired him,
right?
All that kind of stuff. But he unearthed an early comment from George that said this. This is like a long time ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, go check out one of Alex's videos. I'll have to highlight where it is. Like, Alex does great work, and Molly does great work, obviously. But, like, it was something I had not heard. It was a quote from George saying, 3PO was this. He was reprogrammed, but he didn't say Anakin. But he was like he used to be this 1,000 years or 100 years ago, and then he was rescued by a junk dealer, and reprogrammed and rebuilt.
Wow!
He just decided, all right, what if it was Anakin?
That's the way George made films, though, and that's why he has this rich story, and he just kind of puts the pieces together or whatever at that point. I love that it turned the whole thing to thank the maker. Also, we know who the maker is.
Yeah. Well, I remember making it it's when Snark, again, Snark can get you millions of views. Just see what's going on in the landscape the last couple of weeks. But I used to always say, so wait, that means the original trilogy is just a story of a boy trying to get his droid again. But this really, that's partly true.
I mean, obviously, I'm not going to lie. It's the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy melded together perfectly. Yes, it's a little sloppy. You kind of like blur those lines together for a little fun, and I think that's okay. This is campfire tales, as we have to say here.
It's like what? Sorry, I know, and I gave you guys a time limit. I'm blowing past it because this is fun. I had, R2 being from Naboo and everything was a little wrapped up nicely, but it's like I used to argue with some folks about at the end of season 8 of Game of Thrones, of all the things I could criticize, and I love that season. It's my second favorite season of the show, but got it. They said, I don't know, season 8 just kind of confirmed that this story is just about 3 families. It's a little small. The world's a little small. And I was like, did you want season 8 to be about the janitors? Do you want Godfather 4 to be about the cook?
Right.
Like, what are you talking about? And it goes to the Skywalker thing. Like, the High Republic stuff, and I love those novels. And Acolyte's going to take us to a new era, the end of the High Republic. Totally with people who want new things. But when people are like, "Oh, Skywalkers again," that's the story. That's the story.
Yes,
it's not Romeo and Juliet's neighbor,
right?
It's Romeo and Juliet.
When George makes Star Wars originally, makes this little story. That's the most important. Like I can't remember who quoted this. It's a quote from a filmmaker that I like, but he said basically, if you're making a film about some time in life in a world, it's got to be the most important thing that happened in that galaxy or that world. So anything else,
man,
anything else by definition has to be a lesser story. So how could you not want to talk about the most important events and how they rippled throughout time and space?
Yeah, it's like it's Star Wars. Star Wars: A New Hope is about this young far boy who has a greater purpose in the galaxy. It's not about his friend Wormy.
Right. Absolutely.
Fixer. It's not about that.
Matty,
I'll go from you. Was there anything that surprised you growing up when you were in there?
There was, and I will defend this moment until the day I die. It's as someone who has always been the smaller guy, but in my previous life would have to engage in physical violence with someone much bigger than them. Yoda fighting Count Dooku.
It's just the best.
Yes.
Finding out that Yoda was all about it from he took a Sith Lord and just absolutely dog walked him. And everyone's worried about, he's bouncing off the walls, he's jumping around, he's like Bugs Bunny with a lightsaber. That's the cool. Like, we got to see Yoda in action, not just sitting on Luke's back while
Right.
Luke does backflips.
Siegel, stop it now. Yeah, no, I always say this. I used to, it's I don't need to say it as much, thank God. But like, I used to point fingers at my generation Star Wars fans and was like, I was there in 2002. I saw you all give a round of applause to you showing up to. I was there every damn screening I was at. It was before I went to press screening. This was the fans. You all cheered. Don't act like you didn't. It was a great scene.
And now it's the uncool moment. Oh, wow. Why? Because he was flying around. That moment when he throws down the cane, takes off the robe, and then just unleashes his lightsaber. Like, here we go.
What I love about that, I'll say as best, is how you engage with the film. Sometimes they don't always appear to make sense for some reason. There's something that, well, why is he limping? And also he can do that. To me, the fun part of it is you watch it and you go, okay, well, how does it make sense? And you kind of can you make it make sense in your mind? And I think that's actually a fun part of watching a film. And for me, I grew up with my friends. We came together and went, well, what does that mean? What is he doing? And I look back, I laughed at that moment. I laughed at the fact that after he does it all, he picks up the cane again and started limping around again. I mean, like, he does that to lower expectations, that when he does bust out his lightsaber, he's that much more powerful. We explain it that way. It's kind of a fun explanation, like the old no prizes from Marvel Comics back in the day, where you had to explain the situation. That's fun.
There's a reason that Obi-Wan said if you concentrate more on your saber technique as you do your wit, you'd rival Master Yoda as a swordsman. That's not just a throwaway line.
We got that paid off, didn't we? All right, we're out of surprise moments. Let's start wrapping up. We got 2 little bits of it. Let's just talk about our favorite parts of the trilogy. Let's go through some of our favorite moments, the ones that stuck with us back then, stuck with us even now. I'll start off right away. One of my favorite moments of the trilogy, I think, is an easy one. It's the easy one to throw out there. It's Order 66. We are still getting versions of that. In fact, some people have said they're sick of seeing Dave Filoni find different contexts and different viewpoints from Order 66. Me, bring it on. I want to see what everybody was doing during Order 66 because it's such a pivotal moment and such a powerful moment. And it's scored so beautifully by John Williams.
Revenge of the Sith remains my favorite John Williams Star Wars score.
By far. I will fully agree with you. And that's one of the reasons why that whole going from exactly the moment with Anakin and on the top of this pier looking through across that Padme, from that moment up through the end of Order 66 is my favorite bit of music, rivaled only maybe by Vader and Luke at the end of Return of the Jedi, the Return of the Jedi music, as I call it. But yeah, that Order 66 is such a beautiful moment of scared, and with the beneficiary of how the Clone Wars, and I know this is not part of the prequel trilogy, but the Clone Wars really kind of added some heft to it. Got to go even some more, getting even further. Now you go back and watch it again, and it hits even harder. So my favorite moment by far.
Me? Is it me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I mean, look, I love pod race remains one of my favorite things. I'm obsessed with the pod race and pod racers. Order 66, Caddy Mundi, despite being, a mansplainer who overlooked Padme, him turning around and realizing the mistakes and that his death is happening is tragic and all that stuff. Plo Koon's death, Dave, his death. There's all that there. I love the Battle of Geonosis, Attack of the Clones. I remember coming out of the theater in 2002 and was like, God, that battle made me want to go play Star Wars, like actually go to the playground like I was 10 again. That's there. But there's little moments along the way. I'm a big fan of the character of Padme and the decision she makes to go back to Naboo, which does throw a wrinkle into Palpatine's plan, even if for 2 seconds, and he's so good, he gets ahead of it right away. And she has always been a rival to him. It plays out more in the Clone Wars, and you see it. It's just like Leia will eventually, all the way up to Rise of Skywalker, where Palpatine says the Princess of Alderaan. He's still pissed at her and her mother. But one of my favorite. I have an essay on it on ForceCenter. But the infamous used to say people are going to die moment with Jar Jar is a powerful moment to me. It's one of my favorite moments to watch. It's 10 seconds at most, but it is two people from a planet that had become segregated. The people of Naboo, came to Naboo, took over the planet. They weren't born there. They pushed the natives to the fringes. They hated each other for years, and it took Jar Jar in that moment saying, "We're proud people, and we'll fight for this because I see the connection. I see the importance. We are in a symbiotic circle." And he says it so straight-laced. And yes, the South Park movie plucked it out by almost dumb luck and made it a meme. And it's Padme going, I know what I must do, and I know that we're in this together, and that's where I need to go, and I need to unite this planet again, and we can fight together. And it leads to the moment with Boss Nass and the bowing before him, and even that scene's not my favorite executed. It's a little clunky in the dialogue, but I just love that moment. It's everything with Jar Jar, this character that is maligned, and I understand why at the time, but we know the dangers of what happened. How Ahmed Best took the brunt of that, this technological advancement of a character, and it wasn't fair to him. But Jar Jar represents all of us matter. All of us have a place in this story. And they aren't the pathetic life forms along the way. They aren't just the clowns. There's purpose there. And for him to tell the Queen, like, we'll fight with you. We'll fight with you. And she's the first one in generations to see it. I love that moment. It's the core of the film to me.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's a very beautiful thing. So
God fucking damn it, I should have gone before you.
Maddie's like, I like when she offers him the Jawa juice.
No, it's just how incredibly you just put that. Jar Jar, as I said on ForceCenter, is a character that I've loved since I was a child, and like to hear you say it like that, I'm just like, how could, I mean, we're not here to try and top each other's moments here, but like, dude, that damn it, I should have gone before. Damn it. The moment to me that sticks out in the mind, and it's been burned into my brain as a child, and I mentioned this again when I was on ForceCenter with you and Joseph, Ken, is the doors opening and seeing Darth Maul.
Oh yeah,
like seeing him there waiting, because it is, as you put, a vision of hell, and it is a manifestation of fate standing and looking you right in the face. And it's, we know, but Dave Filoni has often talked about how Duel of the Fates was the battle for Anakin's soul, and now that I know that, I look at that moment completely different, because it is essentially the doors open to someone's fate looking right at you, and it is a horrific sight to see. But it's also like I mentioned, I saw pictures of Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley a kiss, and they used to terrify me as a kid. So Darth Maul scared the ever-loving shit out of me.
Yes, as he should.
I will say quickly on that, a little untouched moment of that is a humorous moment for me. The door opens and Qui-Gon's of course like, oh, we'll take care of this. I love Padme without missing a beat. Well, you will take the long way. We're not going anywhere near that.
It's great. It's great.
One more one I want to throw out there, especially because to me, I wanted to say it emphasizes Star Wars for me. And again, it has to do with John Williams' score as well, because that's the score that I want behind my life, really. When Anakin says goodbye to his mom, he stops there. He, she's like, I can't do it. I can't do it. His mother being like, you don't look back. Don't look back. He turns and he goes. And that score swells, and that is Star Wars to me. It's about that puberty thing we talked about. We move forward. We are realizing our life. We are stepping forward into that new universe of ideas of what could happen, the potential there, the tragedy that's going to forecome, that we know it's going to happen, but yet the overall beauty of what this is encapsulate the young Jedi, or not Jedi yet, the young hopeful Jedi going out to his grander scheme of things. Oh, every time.
We don't spend a lot of time with Shmi, unfortunately, but that's a powerful moment. I ranked it very high in that little book you have there, Matty and Paul, because it's so important.
It is so important. Beautiful. So, all right, we're going to start wrapping things up now. We're going to talk about finally the legacy of the prequel trilogy. I will start off with a little bit saying that the legacy has a positive and negative side for me. The negative side I want to get out of the way. I just don't like how, I kind of mentioned it before, how it's become a little bit of a weapon all of a sudden for people who didn't like it at a time when it came out, and now it's used as the barometer for, well, this is Star Wars now. Well, it wasn't Star Wars to you back in 2002 or 1999, but yet now, because you don't like some things that are happening in the current Star Wars era, now all of a sudden we're going to wield this like a double-sided lightsaber, the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. You can't do it. You can't have it both ways. And it's not to say that some of those people haven't, like Ken and me, grown up, or maybe a little bit questionable about the prequel trilogy, and we have found our way to the light, and found that we engage with it in different fashions, and we love the prequel trilogy now. I will say the Matty's generation coming up has made me happy to see people who grew up unashamedly loving Jar Jar, unashamedly loving the clones, unashamedly loving everything about Yoda fighting, bouncing around like the Muppet he was back in the day. I love the fact that the legacy of the prequel trilogy now is to me, it's one of the most important things of Star Wars as a whole. And it's what you always talk about, Ken, what I always like to try to emphasize as well. Don't judge things on what you expect. Go in, take in what the filmmaker and storyteller is trying to say. Engage with it in a way. Don't look about how to hate it. Look at it. Well, how can I relate to this? Can this relate to me? Is this important in any way, shape, or form? Does this have something to say that maybe I need to hear? Maybe I'm not ready for it at the time, but maybe eventually I will be. And I think that's become the kind of crux to me of what the legacy of the prequel generation or the prequel era is. We have a story that's there, a story that is meaningful if you engage with it the proper way. And I don't know how to wrap this up, but I love it. That's become that way for everybody else. Matty, let's talk about you. What's the legacy as a prequelist? Let's see what your legacy is.
My legacy of this is to take it back to music. If you have someone like Kubrick, who is the Beatles of kind of Star Wars storytelling, the prequels and George in this era was the Rage Against the Machine. It was fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Like he went and he created the movies he wanted to make because they best served the story that he told. And you bring up those people that weaponize movies or prequels in general. I don't listen to those fucking idiots. Like you can have all your clicks, you can have all your bot fans. I love these movies. Ken, you once said something that has stuck to me to this very day of try and tell that 5-year-old girl not to dress like Rey at a convention. Back then, to me, it was try and tell me not to laugh at Jar Jar Binks saying, Misha no have a boomer. Like, the legacy of it is just be unabashedly yourself and, like, love the things that you love without caring about the opinions of others. If you have what some people would say delusions of grandeur, follow them. Who cares what other people think? As long as you're happy within yourself, that's all that matters.
Love it. Ken.
Yeah, legacy is it is complicated. It is sprawling. It goes to a lot of different spots. It starts a lot of different conversations. Like I said earlier, I'm not here to gaslight anyone to I think these are absolutely perfect beat for beat films, or that some of the big swings George took all succeeded. You know that's not the case of it. But so you could say the same for the first three films. I owe so much to these films as a Star Wars fan. I don't know if we are where we are now if we don't have these films. Not saying that Disney or a company would have come in and been like, hey, let's kick the dust off that old Star Wars thing. But there was dark times in Star Wars where it was a thing of the past. And this brought it forward. I owe everything to the prequel generation that said, no, this is my thing. You, Matty, or my cousin, who at the time was 7, was like, oh, Phantom Menace is my favorite film. And I couldn't reach into his soul and rip that out of him. And I couldn't do that when I was 23, and I definitely wouldn't do it now. This speaks to people should be allowed to become who they want to be and be influenced by the things they want to be, and us not gatekeeping that. We're talking about Star Wars too. This is different than a podcast that reevaluates Herbie Fully Loaded and now thinks this is Star Wars. This is big. This is cultural, and you need to go back to 77. Go back to the Empire of Dreams doc. Go back to these docs that go take you there and go. This is how it changed everything in the film industry, everything in our culture. This is huge, and the prequels are part of that, and that's part of the legacy. It's got some great Star Wars. It's got some complicated Star Wars. It's got some weird Star Wars. It's got some important Star Wars. I'm very happy that it's being celebrated. I'm very happy that 25 years out of The Phantom Menace, the view of it has changed. That's something to continue to learn from.
Absolutely, and hopefully we'll actually see that continue maybe with the sequel trilogy. as
We
well. I
will.
wouldn't be surprised if we have another reappropriation of it in another 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'll wrap things up by saying the final thing about the prequel thing, the prequel legacy of things. It's going to be summed up one way for me. Back in the day, we all hated, and I mean hated, midichlorian. Here we are, fast forward, Bad Batch. Everybody's going, say it, say it, say it. That's where we have. So I love that. That's where we have gotten to. All right, we are going to wrap things up. Ken, thank you so much for staying a little bit over. Ken, where can the folks find you?
You can go to my website for now. I think I have to shut down my website. I don't want to talk money, but inflation and corporate greed hits everywhere. My website operating costs have gone up $800. So, go to kennapzok.com while you can. From there, you can get a personalized copy of my book, Why We Love Star Wars, in the shop tab there, or just follow me on any social media thing that I'm on. Search for me. I'm there as Ken Napzok.
Absolutely. Okay, Matty, how about you? Where can the folks find you?
My social media handles are all right down there. At Matty Mourner, you can find my band Mourner, Mourner, the second half of my thing there. We have a new song that is currently being mixed. I am quite confident in saying it's the best song that I've ever written, and it's very politically charged. And I'm getting, sorry, Ken, I'm getting pretty angry on this one. So the love ballad's gonna have to wait for a little bit longer.
Oh yeah, where's my pub love ballad from you?
We're all waiting for that one as well, Ken. But we will support the rage as we need to. Paul_Newsy on Twitter. You can find me all over this channel. I do a lot of shows here. I do every other week. I do a review with Lego as we're going through the franchise V from the 1980s, and now we're getting into the 2009 reboot. I love doing that. Of course, PJ and I are in our Doctor Who moment. We are in the big blue box with PJ and PLD. While Doctor Who is going on after the end of the season, we'll revert back to two mediocre white dudes on film, going through John Wick and Nightmare on Elm Street. And of course, I do my Green show every week. And this week we'll be talking Brian May's Leaving Home Ain't Easy, when he did the Wheatus dirtbag moment long before Wheatus ever even was born, I believe, probably, to be honest with you. But that's okay. And of course, next week we'll be back here on Holy Snokes talking The Acolyte, and Matty will finally be able to talk about The Acolyte. And I'm waiting tremendously to talk about this with you guys. And again, if you like, subscribe, patreon.com/PLD Projects. We have a good crew. Austin Cadell, Brandon Buckingham joining that crew. We can't wait to talk to you guys more about that. If you can't do it, though, totally understand. Share, like, subscribe. Let's beat that algorithm together as much as we can. And I think that will do it. And we have one minor tease. You will see these three people on screen again in the near future, sometime soon. With what? It's not Star Wars related. That's all I'm going to say for now. Stay tuned. You'll hear about it from us. All right. Take care, guys.
Backbeat, the word is on the street that the fire in your heart is out.
PLD Projects presents Holy Snokes, the Star Wars podcast, featuring PLD and Matty Gunner. May the Force be with you, always.